Hi, welcome to Train Talk. I'm Monty.
I'm Rebecca, and today we're going to be talking to Bill Tucker, who is our Project Delivery Director. Essentially, Bill is the conductor of the Texas Central Orchestra, making sure that all of the different components of this project happen in the right order, at the right time, and of course under budget, which is no small feat.
That's a beautiful analogy, Rebecca.
Thank you. Let's go talk to Bill.
All right, let's go.
So talk to us a little bit about your role and what you're responsible for with this project.
Okay, well, I actually have two roles. One is I'm the project director for Bechtel's contract to provide project management services into the integrated Texas Central Delivery Organization. And then within that organization, I'm also the project delivery director. So I have responsibility both in the development phase and when the project starts to put together all of the scope and the detailed engineering that's required for us to get pricing from our three main contractors for the civil works, for the core rail systems, and for the stations. To then put together all of the support there relative to getting our regulatory approvals through the environmental and the federal government processes and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, to also get our risk management program put together so we understand where the risks are in the project, to develop what we call our project management plan, which is going to describe how Texas Central is going to manage and operate this huge project once we go into construction. And get that all done in a time frame that allows us to make sure that not only our contractors, but our third-party stakeholders and ourselves, we all know how it's going to be done so that we don't have any surprises once we reach financial close and we get started with the initial construction in 2020.
Bill, this is obviously a big endeavor that you've undertaken here. I'm assuming that you have to have some sort of experience before you get a role like this. So why don't you tell everybody about the experiences you've had and what brought you here to Texas Central?
Don't let my youthful appearance trick you, because I've been doing this for about 38 years, and you can actually divide my career in half. I spent the first half of my year building power plants. I was educated as an architect, but ended up getting into the construction side of the building business and did nuclear plants for the first half of that, and actually lived in Fort Worth for 7 years, 6 to 7 years, while we were doing the Comanche Peak plant down in Glen Rose. In 2000, I moved to London, where the second half of my career started, originally as the regional manager of construction for Bechtel's work in Europe and Africa and the Middle East, but I quickly found myself involved in railroad projects. The tail end of the Channel Tunnel Rail Link, which is the Eurostar service that comes from Paris into St. Pancras Station in London. I then worked on the upgrade of the West Coast Main Line, which is the rail service between London and Glasgow, where we upgraded it to a high-speed service to support new trains, which were introduced by Pendolino Virgin at the time. And then most recently, the last 9 years, in fact, I was involved in the Crossrail project. In the last 5 years of that, I was the project director for the new underground service in London, which is going to be called the Elizabeth Line when it opens late this year or early next year.
So it's an underground line. So this project produces a lot different challenges than that kind of project. So explain a little bit about the difference between that kind of project versus what we have here in Texas.
Well, I've always said that when you're building a big infrastructure project, you're really not doing anything unique. I mean, people have built tunnels before, people have built viaducts before, people have put tracks in the ground, people have put overhead electrical lines up in the air, and you're doing nothing new, but you're doing it in a different situation with a different set of players involved, a different set of environmental conditions, and so you have to approach each project to really define where you need to allow the contractors to do the work. The contractors know how to do the work, but the contractors don't know what they're going to need to do to meet the environmental commitments that we're going to have, to interface with the unique stakeholders that we're going to have between Dallas and Houston. And so our job is really to enable the contractors to do what they do best, because they know how to build viaducts, they know how to put tracks in the ground, they know how to pour concrete.
So let's talk about some of those contractors. I know, especially, this past year, a lot of the focus here at Texas Central has been building up our team. Bringing in these global powerhouse firms like Bechtel, like Renfe, like Cellini, to really help us round out our team to get prepared to start turning dirt once we eventually get to that stage in the project. as somebody who is in charge of managing all of those various work streams and bringing us a project at the end of all of that work, what is it like in managing the challenges of bringing in cross-cultural global business practices to build a uniquely Texas system right here in the Lone Star State?
Yeah, you've hit the real challenge right on the head, because again, I talked about companies a minute ago. Companies are nothing but people, and people are coming from many different cultures, and even within companies, different cultures from within that company. And so I've always likened my job, and I talked about this when I was on the Crossrail project, is my role is like an orchestra leader, and we've got different companies who are the different parts of the orchestra, and the designers give them sheet music, and we procure materials and equipment, which are their instruments, and you just need to make sure that everybody's working on the same score, on the same page, in the same bar, at the same tempo, and then it sounds like music, and you've got a great project going. If you don't have all of that coordination and all that integration set up, then you don't hear music, and you don't have a great project. So our role in Texas Central, obviously with Bechtel support, is to make sure we really define everything that the contractors need to do. We set the score of that music, and then make sure everybody's playing what they should be playing.
That's a beautiful analogy. I have a feeling you've used that one before.
I have.
So why don't you tell us a little bit more about the future of Texas Central, and where do you see this project moving from here in spring of 2019 to the future? Where do you see us going?
Okay, we've got some real important work streams going right now, and they're all very critical, and they all need to kind of coordinate and culminate at the same time. We've got the regulatory processes that we're going through with the federal government for our environmental permits and our rules of safety for how we're going to operate the railway. In parallel with that, we're working with the Corps of Engineers on their environmental requirements that we have to comply with. As I said earlier, we're doing all of the work to define the scope and the design and the execution plans so that the contractors can price their work. We're dealing with all of the stakeholders that we've got up and down the line. Some are big, like Union Pacific and the City of Houston, and some are going to be very small local stakeholders we have in the middle counties, and so we're defining everything we need to do there. And so we're looking mid-year towards the third quarter for all of that to start to come together, which then allows us to go and start talking to the financial community about the financing and the arrangements for how we're going to bring the money into the project, and how Texas Central is going to demonstrate to them that, that we're ready to stand up and manage this, and we've got all the contracts in place, all the agreements in place that we have, which takes quite a bit of work. And also in that second half, we need to be in a position to start looking at what do we need to do in the second half of this year to be ready for the contractors to hit the ground in the first quarter of next year. So we achieve financial close by the end of this year. We're on the ground virtually every county on day one, starting to do initial groundworks, looking at utilities, doing geotechnical surveys, starting to clear and grub and put fencing up. And we'll do that for 4 to 6 months before you'll actually see heavy construction start.
So what are the kind of skills that people are going to need once we get to the point of beginning construction to actually work on building the system? You
kind of need all skills. And if I look just within Texas Central, we're going to need teams that are going to have to be able to do project management work, do construction management work, do logistics planning, do contract administration, do project controls, be able to plan and update the schedules, get the cost information, translate that into how we're doing against our financial budgets. We're going to need to be doing field inspections. We're going to need to be interfacing with the third parties and helping our contractors get all of our permits. We're going to need to be doing oversight of everything the contractors do. And that's just what we have to do over and above the contractors, who will actually be doing all of the physical work, doing all of the actual paperwork and permitting applications that have to take place. But in my history, I've always learned, particularly when you have multiple contracts, the client has to play a very important and key role to be able to make sure that they know what they need to do, and we need to stay a step ahead. So one of our skills is we need to be able to look around corners, and that's it's an easy thing to think about, but it's a very hard thing to do. And how do we ensure that while the contractors are so focused on what they need to do, that our team is able to step back, look ahead, and knock down those barriers before the contractor gets to them. So that requires technical skills, it requires interpersonal skills, it requires communication skills, and so we need really flexible people that are going to support Texas Central's role to manage and administer all these contracts.
So knowing that you've had experience in delivering a system like Crossrail in the UK and really spending the entire second half of your career working in abroad markets building high-speed trains, what is it like to have an opportunity to come back to the United States and have a project here locally?
I've said several times I've been really fortunate to learn a lot about a particular sector of the engineering and construction industry, and I'd hoped I'd have the opportunity at the end of my career, and you know, I'm nearing the end of my career, so not quite before this project's done, I might add, but a little after this project's done, to be able to translate and help the U.S. try to get up to speed with how you do good infrastructure projects, because I got real spoiled in living in Europe with high-speed rail services, underground commuter services in cities around the countries in Europe. And so the fact that we don't have that in America really, you know, it saddens me a little bit. So if I can do just a little bit to help our industries learn how to deliver these projects so they can start to see the benefits that people see, then we'll see more and more projects start going after ours is done.
So on a personal level, were you looking to come back to the U.S. and work in the U.S. and to bring this kind of technology here? Or?
Oh yeah. I lived in the UK 19 years. My three boys grew up there. They all came back to the States for college, and now they're off working.
Do they have accents?
No, they have vocabularies though.
Okay.
They could put the accents on. But no, it was time. It was time for me professionally and from a family standpoint for us to change our center of gravity back to the States, and to come back to a place that I've lived before is comforting. And so I always called myself a closet Texan when I was in. Now I'm back and I'm a Texan again. So.
Okay, great. Yeah.
So knowing that you've lived here previously, spent some time abroad and came back, what's been the biggest change in the Metroplex that you've seen?
I can remember when 183 was a 4-lane road with car lots beside it going to the airport. Now it's a 10-lane road with no car dealerships. And the volume of the vehicular traffic, which again compels you to say, why aren't we building more railroads?
Yeah. Are you on the Dallas side now, or still
on the
Fort
Dallas
Worth
side?
Yeah. All right. So you've get to experience both sides of the Metroplex.
Exactly.
All right, Bill. Well, and is there anything else that you want to share with the folks watching the podcast?
No, but the only thing I would like to say is this project's going to take a lot of people, and this project's going to take a long time. And if there's people out there who think, maybe I'd like to get in the engineering and construction business, we need young people coming into our industry. And one of the things that both Bechtel and Texas Central want to do is offer all kinds of opportunities to bring people into the business that have not been in the business before, because we're gonna need it for our project, and it's gonna help build the capabilities not only in Texas but outside of Texas for those next projects that come on the heels of the success we can show them we can achieve.
Yeah, as our fearless leader Holly Reed always says, we're bringing a brand new industry to Texas. We're building a super economy between North Texas and Houston, and it's really cool to be a part of that, and we thank you for being a part of that. Rebecca, did you have something you wanted to add?
I just think it's amazing that, once this system is up and running and built, and other states across the United States look to Texas and what we have built here, we're going to be the experts with the knowledge and the skill set to where when other places want to recreate systems like this, we're going to have the talent pool that they draw from, which is really exciting.
And I also know that Texas Central, like my previous client in the UK, will be very happy to share and help others do well in their projects. And we're benefiting from that generosity from my past client, and I know this client will be that generous to future clients as well.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks again, Bill. It's been a pleasure talking with you. We look forward to speaking with you in the future.
Yep, we'll be building something next year this time, so I look forward to telling you about it.
I look forward to that.
We look forward to having you back on the show to talk to us about all the progress you've made.
Great.
Thank you.